let's just say that I'm reading Ahley's credentials, and it exhausts me to read Ahley's credentials. She is a political strategist. She's the founder and CEO of Freedom's Fund USA. She's an Academy Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. She has her Juris Masters in International Law from Liberty University School of Law. Ahley, I'm not qualified to talk to you. I'm too dumb to talk to you.
No, it's okay. I just pretend to be smart.
Ahley Smith Thomas, she calls us from Dallas, Texas here this morning. And we were just talking about how booming it is in Dallas right now. It's just crazy. But Ahley, I'm guessing from an overall standpoint that Dallas is, it's not the norm for America right now. America is really struggling, and inflation is a really, really difficult problem. By the way, our conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Ahley, economy's bad and inflation is bad, but it doesn't seem like that's really hitting home in Washington at all.
No, and I think it just goes to prove that there's just this out-of-touch reality of what's going on in the Beltway compared to what's happening in the rest of the nation. And so last Thursday, President Biden, he actually spoke with the Associated Press in an interview, and he was asked about the rising inflation and costs, and he then began to appear defensive, especially when asked if his energy policies were to blame for the inflation. And so President Biden, he stated that a recession was, quote, not inevitable, even though many economists are forecasting a recession at the Federal Reserve since they raised the interest rate. So President Biden, he stated, quote, we're in a stronger position than any nation in the world to overcome this inflation, end quote. He began to focus on the 3.6% unemployment rate and America's strong standing across the world. However, when asked about inflation at a 40-year high and having policies that are driving the inflation and record high gas prices, President Biden bristled and he stated, quote, if it's my fault, why is it the case in every other major industrial country in the world that inflation is higher? You ask yourself that. I'm not being a wise guy, end quote. Well, that's not necessarily true, because when pressed during a press briefing last week, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, she was asked to explain those comments, because right now it goes to show that the U.S. is actually higher in inflation compared to Germany, France, Japan, Canada, India, Italy, and Saudi Arabia. So according to CNN, which this is a shocker, but according to CNN, they reported that President Biden has a new target now in his attempt to stem the raging inflation by blaming oil giants for banking high profits at the gas pump. So now President Biden plans to go to Saudi Arabia to ask for more barrels of oil to help alleviate pressure on Americans. But at the same time, he's also blaming Russia's President Putin for the inflation, which we all know we started to see the increase of inflation before the Russian-Ukrainian war. So according to Politico, polls are actually showing that inflation is on the minds of voters compared to the Russian-Ukrainian war. And with midterms being 5 months away, Democrats are now feeling the pressure from the Americans while trying to shift blame to Republicans and saying that it's actually the Republicans that are hurting the American people.
Well, Ahley, here's the disconnect, because, by golly, we're hearing it from both the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle, that inflation is a horrible problem. We certainly see it every day in our own lives, in our daily lives. Why does the White House have such a problem admitting that this is what is at the heart of America's economy right now, and that it needs to be addressed? Why are they trying to pull the wool over our eyes, as they say?
I think it's twofold. One, I truly believe that Obama is still controlling and running the White House. I mean, that is evident when we saw a few months ago when he was standing and revealing basically praising the Obamacare and the people's reaction towards Obama, and poor President Biden. I mean, he just stood there looking lost. And so I believe that what we're seeing is a lot of these policies that came out of the Obama administration now being implemented here within the Biden administration. But the other part of that, I think, is because these policies are failing. Democrats do not want to admit that their policies are failing. So instead of actually being transparent, which President Biden promised that he would be during campaign season, that he'd be transparent and accountable to the American people, we're not seeing that level of transparency. Instead, rather than taking the responsibility and saying, hey, look, our policies we admit they're not working. So what we're going to do is we're going to work collectively in a bipartisan way to make sure that we can best help the American people and alleviate this pressure. But that's not happening. We're not seeing this true leadership come from the White House. So instead of taking responsibility for these failed policies, what we're seeing is a shift and lift and blame game that is happening right now among Democrats. And you know that it's bad with the Democrat Party when you have Bernie Sanders a couple weeks ago warning Democrats that Republicans will win in November, because he actually stated, he said, quote, "You really can't win an election with a bumper sticker that says, well, we can't do much, but the other side is worse." And he stated, quote, "Republicans stand an excellent chance of gaining control of the House and quite possibly the Senate." So the fact that even Bernie Sanders sees it, and same thing with Senator Elizabeth Warren, your very two progressive senators, warning the Democrat Party, it just goes to show that right now what the White House is doing is not working, and they are out of touch with the needs of the American people.
We hear all about the unemployment rate, but we sort of got an idea in the last 5 or 10 years that the unemployment rate is really not a true measure of anything having to do with the way the economy goes, because unemployment rates can be manipulated so easily. Interest rates, the Fed's set to raise those again. That the right move? Is that going to stem it?
That's such a great question. I think right now, bottom line, I think a lot of this pressure would be alleviated if President Biden had not shut down the Keystone Pipeline. That would have, one, boosted job creation, and then also that would help alleviate this pressure that we're seeing at the pump. That should have not been shut down from the get-go. But of course, we know that that was a battle under the Obama administration, and the fact that we saw this from the Biden administration comes at no surprise. Unfortunately, we are relying on other nations for oil and gas when we have plethora of oil and gas right here in the United States. Part of that, what we're seeing, though, as the overall economy, is that according to the Associated Press, this inflation and the increase that is happening, they stated that gasoline has increased 49.5%, airline fares 37.8%, hotels 19.3%, electricity 12%, groceries 11.9%, and rent 5.5%, and so on. So even if the Federal Reserve, let's say, bumps up a few more points, I don't know that's actually going to help alleviate this pressure that the American people, as a matter of fact, I think it's probably going to spook the markets even more.
With the price of gasoline, of course, that's such a key. Everything that's in our stores is arriving by truck in one way or another, and the products that are needed to make those goods, they have to arrive by truck as well. So much is tied to the price of gasoline and diesel. But is it as simple as simply, all right, let's open up the tap again and start flowing the oil through the American sources that are there because we have them? Is it that simple to turn this economy around?
Oh gosh, I think that there's simple ways to do it. I think the problem right now that we're seeing is that this administration has been denying permits. They have been actually putting pressure on your oil and gas companies. A lot of them are facing a lot of pressure, making it difficult to just open everything up and be able to do what they need to do. There's just a lot of regulation that is coming from this administration, and I can't help but wonder if a lot of that is coming from because of the infrastructure bill that had passed with bipartisanship. A lot of that was to also help provide, quote, climate change. So that in itself is very telling, and it'd be interesting to see if this is a result of that infrastructure bill. I hate to do this to you, but I have another call coming in to jump on another station.
That's fine. You go, and thanks for being with us today.
Yes, look forward to coming back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There's Ahley Smith Thomas with us this morning, so we were about to say goodbye to her anyway, but there you go. That's her take on what's going on with this economy, with the inflation, and boy, that wasn't very hopeful, was it? Wasn't very